but I noticed that Councillor Vince may be running late.
Okay, thank you, Hugh. Declarations of interest. Receive declarations of interest from councillors on items on the agenda. Receive written requests for dispensation for declarable interest and grant any requests for dispensation as appropriate. Anybody? Minutes, can I sign the minutes, please, from September? Was it from September? My goodness. Time flies. Time flies when you're enjoying yourself. Thank you. Solar Hearts Ambulance to receive presentation from Ian Grosskopf, volunteers, CEO of Solar Hearts Ambulance. Hi, good evening.
Hi, good evening. Hi, good evening. Thank you very much for having me. My name is Ian Grosskopf. I am one of the trustees and director of operations for Solar Hearts. First of all, thank you very much for having me here, and just to perhaps use this opportunity to share with you who we are. We're in your back garden, and I think it's really important that we get to know each other. So, Solar Hearts, what I want to share with you this evening is what our vision is, what we do. I think some of you might know who the CQC are, but what Ofsted is to school, CQC is to the ambulance service. Look a little bit at some statistics and some testimonials. If we can go on to the next slide, please. So we set out about 3.5 years ago as a group of volunteers to try and put this vision together and hopefully actually make it a reality. And interestingly, we are a Jewish organisation, a Jewish ambulance service, and one of our goals is to be a world-leading volunteer organisation. And interestingly, we've had some other ambulance services use things that we've put in place within Solar Hearts and have implemented it in their services. We've had our med team, so we've got a pharmacist on board who's taken some of our policies and put it into big sports. So teams like Arsenal and Chelsea that he works with, and he's kind of put those things in there. So it's kind of worked really well. But we have some pillars that make all this work well. So our values, the leadership, how effective we are. These are all things that we actually monitor quite closely. But most importantly, we're underpinned by great people and secure funding. So great people. We have a team of over 100 volunteers that make Solar Hearts a reality. All you might see at the front end are perhaps 20 to 25 paramedics that come out on the ambulances, but behind them there's a team of fleets team, there's the stores team, there are people in governance, there are people in all the infrastructure, areas that you might find in an ambulance service, and all of them, medical director, clinical lead, registered manager for the CQC, all of them are all volunteers, and they all give all their time because of a vision that we share. And the vision that we share is saving lives above all. Okay, if we can have the next slide, please. So we are a volunteer emergency ambulance service, and that's the key thing that we're here. We're not here to replace the NHS system. We're here to work alongside and perhaps promote response times being a lot more efficient and effective, perhaps, than the NHS are able to manage at the moment. So I don't have to tell you, you might find that if you call 999 and try and get through the ambulance service, it might take you 10 minutes just to get answered. And our strategy, our goal for all our Cat 1 calls, which are the most life-threatening calls, we get people on scene within 7 minutes of call connect. So the call takes about 1 to 2 minutes. We're on scene within 4 minutes of that time. And that's what we try and achieve. And that's those are the standards that we're setting for ourselves. And in the times where the NHS are struggling to get a response, perhaps 12 hours, 24 hours to certain cases, we're there within 5 to 10 minutes, often 15 minutes for people who would wait, 8 to 10 hours to have a response. So that's why we're here. We're here not to replace, but to work alongside. We have a fantastic relationship with East England Ambulance Service, and we work alongside them to bridge that gap in terms of response times. Obviously, outstanding patient care is exactly what we're trying to achieve, and that's why we're here in Hospital Hearts. That's what we're all trying to do. And we want to work within the local community and provide help wherever needed. And that's the idea of Hospital. Anyone who calls Hospital will get a response. It doesn't matter who's making that phone call. Yes, we are a Jewish ambulance service and a Jewish organisation, and we're funded predominantly by the Jewish community. So we fundraise within the community, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But it doesn't make a difference who calls. We've had the police call us out last Friday night. I attended a call to somebody who had fallen over and had a head injury, which needed to be rushed to hospital. It doesn't matter when they call or where they call. It's a 24/7 service, and we're there. Go to the next slide, please. So a little bit more about the CQC. We are a CQC registered organisation. 3 little letters, but a heck of a lot of work. We've spent hundreds and hundreds of hours putting the policies in place, and remember, this is all done by volunteers who want to make this work, right? So all the policies and procedures, the processes, everything that are in place that you might imagine within a normal ambulance service, we've got the same thing. We're held to the same standards as a normal ambulance service, and we have to achieve that all as volunteers in our spare time. We had our first CQC inspection just 2 weeks ago. It was a great experience because they came out and they weren't quite expecting to see what they saw, with what we put together and what we've managed to accomplish in such a small time. So we've only been live for just over a year now. We went live on the 20th of November last year, 2021. We've attended perhaps 200 plus emergencies in that time, and we haven't advertised anywhere because we want to make sure that we don't create the demand that we can't supply. Okay, so it's a learning process, and we need to make sure that we can provide an efficient and most, a safe service. Overall, the inspection went really, really well. We have some great top-line feedback from the CQC inspectors. The report is still ongoing, and we should hear back from them within a couple of weeks, and then it will be published perhaps in January, where you'll all be able to read of whether I'm sat here just telling you stuff that's not true or whether we're actually doing a good job. But the only thing I think that perhaps they were best pleased about was the fact that we've currently got our ambulances parked in this spot on Theobald Street, which has been very kindly generated by the Federation Shul, the Federation Synagogue, or Israel. But it is a muddy area. It's shared by the kindergarten that's on the site there at the time, and they had some questions around that, but we can touch on that in a minute. Other than that, everything else went really, really well, so we're pleased to have it turned out. Have the next slide, please. So we have 90 plus volunteers. That was when we created this. We have over 100 volunteers right now within the organisation, 28 responders, of which we have different levels of responders. So we have responders that have some basic life support skills. We have responders that are some paramedics. We have critical care consultants and HEMS consultants that volunteer with us. So those are kind of the critical care crew that when East of England have an ambulance on scene and they want to have a critical care backup, they would call those consultants over, and they volunteer for us, which is fantastic. There are 24/7 coverage of phone lines, so the phone can ring at any time. We've got 16 dispatchers that share a rota on a volunteer basis that cover the full 24/7, 365. And we get those phone calls answered within 3 rings. Okay, it's almost never answered after 3 rings. Interestingly, our call volumes are increasing. When we went live, I think we had 1 or 2 calls in the first week. We're getting a call now on a daily basis, and those calls are increasing. For a young organisation, it's talking around somewhere like 400 to 500 people in that time. People are starting to get to know our service, they're starting to trust us. We're working with the police, working with NHS systems, and as that trust builds in the Edgware, which is just around the corner, when they started to have 1 call a week, and they're currently doing about 10 calls a day. So we're looking at perhaps going in that sort of trajectory. Our response times, like I said, we try to get all of our Cat 1 and Cat 2 calls, which are the life-threatening calls from chest pain to unresponsive to not breathing to cardiac arrest. We will be on scene within 8 minutes from Call Connect. So you will likely be on the phone for 2 minutes of that time, and then we'll be on scene within 4 minutes. And the way we do that is the volunteers that we have. We've got kit in all of their cars and their personal vehicles. They get sent via a radio system directly to the scene of the emergency with the kit that can save their lives, with the defibrillators that can save their lives and all that stuff. And then someone brings the ambulance just a couple of minutes later, goes to collect it and brings it. And that's the model, that's how it works. Next slide, please. I mean, you can, testimonials, we get some great feedback. So part of the process of being registered with the CQC is that we actually have to send out feedback letters to every patient that we go to. And I'm proud to say that the feedback that we like to look at as perhaps constructive criticism, right, we take it on board and that's great. We only had 2 perhaps less positive feedback, shall we say, out of the hundreds of people that we've attended. And it's all around being a service that most people have really, really appreciated and benefited from. We can have the next slide, please. So in general, and perhaps not specifically for the council, but in general, where Hatsala needs help and how, how we can perhaps take this from what it is right now to where it needs to be is, of course, funding. Like I mentioned earlier, we are a volunteer organisation and we raise funds. So myself and a colleague of mine over the last 4 years have raised over £450,000 to get us to where we are today. And we've managed to do that by sheer will and generosity of the people within the community that we're here to serve. The reality is that the funding, ongoing funding is quite complicated and quite difficult, and when it comes just from sources of people giving of their own money, it's an ongoing struggle. So that's something we need to look at. We are looking to implement a community training program. So in places like Denmark and other countries where they have a syllabus in a school, for example, where they make it compulsory for kids to know how to do CPR, the response times for the ambulance services are quite similar, but the outcomes of someone in cardiac arrest are much, much better because the bystander CPR that everyone has learned throughout the childhood in school is what saves the life. And that's a program that we want to start getting into the local schools. And perhaps the barrier to entry for that is funding. So we want to get that into the local schools. We've got a program called UDO's Heroes, and you can Google that later. It's a worldwide program that started off in South Africa by parents who unfortunately lost their kid in school because he had an injury and no one knew what to do at the time. So we want to implement that across. We also want public defibrillator programs. So there are not enough defibrillators in the public in the area here, and the one thing that's going to save someone's life when they're in cardiac arrest is getting a defibrillator on board and giving them an early shock. There are defibrillators around, but if you can imagine, every minute it goes by without a defibrillation, chances of survival drops by 10%, right? So perhaps there's a defibrillator on Shenley High Road, but if it's 4 minutes away, someone running, if they knew where it was, which is also questionable, I think we can talk about that, you're talking minutes and minutes, and that's percentage dropping. Survival rates are just shocking at that point. The next thing, like I said, we spoke about earlier, which is with regards to our site. So the one thing that we definitely need to improve on is a place where we can have training. Right now, we rely on the good will of local communities who take us into their synagogues or into their school, but we can use their areas and, for training facilities. And that's not quite working for us at this time. Places where we're able to park the ambulances, and I don't know, if there's any space available, perhaps in any council areas where we can park the ambulances that are not parked in mud. I don't know, but we've started, we're out there, which is great, but we need to get that better. So the next big step for us is outside. And well, planning, so parking permits, so all of our responders, we've got special permits for them. I think 30 odd pounds that the council give us on an annual basis, which is great. I think a little bit more understanding as to what we do and how we do it. So the tickets that we get, they say you've got the permit, but you could have parked a little bit better. And I don't disagree with that. But if we spend the extra 2 minutes parking, perhaps that has an impact on someone's life. So I think perhaps a little bit more understanding or awareness around that would just go a long way for us. And that's really why I'm here today, just to kind of introduce ourselves. We're in your patch. We're here to stay, and we're here to make an impact. We're here to have an impact on people's lives, and we've been doing it for the last year, and we plan on doing it for as long as we can. And I hope that makes sense.
Thank you very much, and thank you. It's very interesting, and it's a lot for us to take in. I think that it's a fantastic organisation. Are you separate? Are you separate from the Edgware one then? Are you separate?
So all the households have their own CQC registration, and because in the geographical areas you have different requirements, and that's why they have to be registered separately by the CQC. So yes, every household, there's 7 in the country at the moment, is all separate at the moment, yes.
Because I remember, it must be a few years ago now, I think I actually rang them, and they didn't service Bournemouth. At that time. So that's why I'm asking you if you, I didn't.
Yeah, and that's right, and I think right now we only service Elstree and Borehamwood at the moment, but we call that sort of Hearts because we want to be able to service the wider areas. I can tell you that we've been refusing calls on a daily basis in other areas because we physically don't have the capability, so we're going to expand, whether it's Shenley, Alban and Radlett. It's going to take time, we will get there, but we need the support, we need the infrastructure.
Yeah, you moved on though, Clive, you wanted to.
Yes, thank you. Just wondering, first of all, why you chose to expand to our area, first of all. Secondly, what other areas do you actually cover at the moment?
As Hatala Hearts, we are specific to this area. I'm not a CEO of any other Hatala. I work in the Stamford Hill area on a daily basis, so I respond in the Hatala in Stamford Hill. I live in Edgware, so I respond as a responder in those 2 organisations. But from a management perspective, I saw that there was a need to kind of bring things here, specifically from the calls that I was attending from Edgware to here on occasion when we did cover. And because of that, there was a clear requirement. And that's why we expanded it.
Thank you. Sandra, you want to speak?
Thank you. Yes, just wanted to first of all thank Ian for coming on and addressing us today, and just say that if council have any questions about Hatala, now is a fantastic opportunity to ask Ian. He's very passionate about the organisation. My family connected with Hatala since its inception in Stamford Hill, and I'm really keen for this authority, if we can, and councils that assist other authorities to be able to work with Hatala to ensure that it's a success.
Let's ask your questions.
That's what
That's
I'm looking for council to find out.
Mr. Groskop, thank you for your presentation. My question is, Hatala, is it a CIC or a charity organization? How do they stand in the community?
So the dynamics, it's a charity, it's a registered charity with Charity Commission, and that's how we're able to fundraise and get those funds through to be able to be where we are today. But we're also registered by the CQC, that's the governance around the organisation.
Jeremy? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for all the work that you're doing. I experienced your fantastic service at first hand a few months ago when elderly gentleman was taken ill in a shop in the Borehamwood Shopping Park. It was a Category 1 call, and the NHS were not able to supply an ambulance within a 6-hour period, and Hatala came out really within 10 minutes. It's a shame that there is a need to plug the NHS gap, and we all know NHS services around here are crumbling, and there shouldn't be a need for what you do, but what you're doing is fantastic. I wanted to try and offer some help on a practical level. As a borough councillor, I sit on the borough's asset management panel, and I'd be very happy to have a conversation with you in terms of premises and parking. In particular, the borough does have significant parking assets that are underused at the moment and have been since the COVID pandemic. So it may well be there's a conversation to be had there. And in terms of sort of training locations and so on, I know we've had training in this building in the past on use of defibrillators, and I'm wondering if this authority might be able to provide use of this space from time to time as and when training is required.
Richard?
Yeah, thanks. I've got a load of questions I could ask you, to be honest, but I won't right this second. It might be worth just giving you details at the end of this meeting if you can, please, because then I can ask some other questions as well. But like Jeremy, I sit on 2 other councils as well. So I'd like to look at maybe a place where, if Jeremy or the other borough councils aren't successful in terms of location of parked vehicles, maybe we can look at some of the Hertfordshire owned land that they have, and maybe we can outreach to them. And I can work with my colleague over there, Councillor Vince, who's also a county councillor maybe we can have a look at what county van there might be that we can see where you could potentially park vehicles. And also, we've also got the defibrillator program that the town council set up. Were you aware of that? So that's the question.
So I'm actually not local from here, right? I live in Edgware, so I don't know all the ins and outs. I know that there are some defibrillators on the high street, so I assume it must be spearheaded by the council.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Pat to fill you in on that, but I do have a question though. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, absolutely. The only thing I have with these defibrillators, I mean, some of those aren't accessible at all times because of the locations that they're at, which is primary schools and so forth. I also have a question really towards the program that we set up is, are we keeping these things up to date and are they still in working order? It's been a couple of years now since we actually installed them. Thank you.
First of all, I think we put nearly 47 defibrillators into different places. All of the schools, one school resisted having them, and we saw that was, I think we put it in last year, Woodlands. And other than that, we haven't put their own in, and they are obviously available in GP practices, the train station, at all of the community centres, at Tesco's, at Morrison's, and St Teresa's Church. So we'll send you the map and show you where they are. In fact, we're running up space to add more, aren't we? And we're beginning to know, we've also mapped other places that have provided their own defibrillators. Now, to answer Richard's question about when and where they're open, they are marked up on this map, and from time to time we do put a map in the town crier just to show people where they are, because there is a golden time and it has to be reached. I mean, we had two that we were about to put in Hartford Road and one in, oh God, what's the other road? Anyway, we couldn't put them in there because one of the local shops were going to be doing, McColl's were going to be doing all of their shops. They got taken over and then did this project. So we're still 2 shopping streets where they could actually do with a defibrillator and somewhere to do it. Regarding training, yes, we do have a trainer. Originally, strangely enough, we had the trainer was what was his name? James Gillett, who was the station master at Elstree Borough Station. He came and gave training for us, and so did somebody called Lawrence Stack, no relation to me. He's a Stack and not Strack. And we have now somebody called Verity McLaughlin, who has a what they call mannequins, so we could get our training back up to date, but we couldn't do it now or previously because of COVID. But all the schools have had training, and everywhere that we put our defibrillators, the staff have had training. But of course, in the intervening time of COVID, that training needs to be renewed. Regarding the life of the defibrillator, she's telling me to shut up, but I'll tell you that all of the defibrillators, all the batteries have a 5-year life, and we've checked that they are up to date. They are also registered with the East of England Ambulance Service.
But we can do more training, that's really what.
Oh, we can do more
that's
training.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody ever? Yeah.
Thank you very much. I've seen them out in Edgware once before, and I was completely blown away. I didn't realise what it was to start with. Can I ask, how many vehicles are you looking to park? And are you looking to park them when you're not using them or ready to respond? When are you actually looking? What sort of parking are we looking for? Just so we know.
So as it stands right now, we have 2 fully kitted out ambulances, frontline ambulances, and we need space for those 2 ambulances. But again, in line with the model, a responder will go and collect that ambulance when there's a call out, right? So there needs to be a couple of spaces for the responders to park their cars whilst they take their ambulances. There's also the issue around stocking of the vehicles. So currently we have a porter cabin set up right next to where our vehicles are, which is secured, CCTV and all that sort of stuff, to have all the stock of the ambulances. So there are people that go on a daily basis to do stock checks and make sure that the ambulance is always ready to go. So we kind of need that sort of space. That's the sort of requirement. So for 2 ambulances and a couple of spaces for people to go drop their cars off and collect the ambulances, and perhaps somewhere close by for some staff.
Thank you very much. So the place that you want to keep these ambulances has got to be central to where we are.
Absolutely, but also it's worth noting that the way we work as South is everyone has their equipment in their car. So the concept of having the equipment on scene happens really quickly because they have all that already. Of course, they don't have what you have in a full ambulance, and that can take a few minutes to come, and that's okay. But you're right, location, it's all about location.
Thank you.
Yeah, just possibly a final question, is it the same number for all the Hatsiders, or do you have a separate number? In which case I'd like to know what it is, please.
Yeah, I'm happy to share that information, that's not a problem. So all the numbers are different, each area has its own call centre. And if I may, perhaps got our contact information already. So if you're able to share that and put that out internally, that'd be great.
Will I read it out right strictly then? No, sorry. 0203 388 7000. Okay, thank you. There is another one.
So
0208 428 9652.
9652.
both of those numbers go to the same call centre. The first one is quite easy to remember, it's 33887,000. And the second one is 0208 Hatsala. So if you look at the keypad, it spells Hatsala.
Madam Chair, I can say something very quick. I was a recipient of Hatsala services about 18 months ago. I had an accident. They were superb. They were there in minutes. They were brilliant. They took me to Barnet General. They were greeted, I would say, like royalty. They were greeted with open arms. It was superb. And if anyone has any issues, wouldn't hesitate to call them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you
Very,
very much.
very interesting, and I think it's a great concept, a great concept. And if we can help in whatever we can help with, we will do.
So from a contact detail perspective, how do I get in touch and how can you get in touch? What's the next step?
The next step is you to get in touch and to come and speak and for what, like.
Just to have some email communication, perhaps with regards to some spaces, some business cards,
Yeah.
and get started.
Well, we all have emails, and that was the town crier, whatever you want from us.
I mean, sometimes, if I'm giving my stuff, then I can give the details.
That's fine, but I'm saying, that in the town crier, there's all the emails, and please write to us and we'll individually,
Should be fine.
Madam Mayor, town clerk, please.
Sorry?
Town clerk to communicate
The
with you.
town clerk, yes, but we would, of course, but, he can't take everything, it would be nice. Simon, do you want to speak, or if you want me to finish what I'm saying? Okay, what I said was, we all have emails, if you, as well as you could contact us, but there's also the town clerk as well, and Richard did it off.
Perfect, thank you very much.
So thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. I don't, you haven't got the town clerk, you haven't had a town clerk.
Magazine, it's a magazine.
Oh, no,
Okay. Thank you. Clive just wants to get you a town clerk, just hang on.
Thank you very much.
You don't have to stay, you can still, Okay, so if you can hang on for just 1 second. All right. Okay, Clive. You want, Simon, we need. You can stay here? Okay, that's fine, we just need to carry on with the meeting. Thank you, very interesting, very interesting. Accounts for payment. To confirm the payment of accounts is approved as follows. Are we approving them? Great. Okay. Okay, all payments over £500 are recorded on the council's website. Schedule of meetings, to adopt schedule of meetings for calendar year 2023. Signed minutes, to note the signed minutes of the committee as follows. Entertainment committee. Oh, you,
Yeah, I've got one on.
what?
Youth council.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, I went too get that there, so I was too keen.
Well, okay, the entertainment committee is first.
Yeah, that's
Okay. 28th of July, 6th and of September and the 8th of October. Environment and Planning Committee, 19th of July, 22. General Management Committee meeting, 21st of July, 13th of October. I'd like to just say something on that one, on the General Management Committee. If we have the questions for here, for the council, can we not start doing something like asking people if they want to ask questions, the public, to send them in, like they do at the borough, and then give us time to check out what they're asking and give them a decent answer. I just would like to put that to you, just to think about. Okay. Yeah, but just think about it, that's all. A youth council.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, no, it's just to point out the question time the Youth Council put on. I had the pleasure to go and watch some of that, and I must admit it was very good. And I just want this council to recognise the hard work the Youth Council have been doing, especially around that. It was a shame, obviously, that Councillor Clapper couldn't attend that evening. We all know the reasons why. We did try to get another member to attend, and it was just unfortunate. Yeah, but it was very, very well attended. I think it was a good event, and I hope the Youth Council will make that an annual exercise, actually, because it was the questions they were coming up with and stuff like that. They were open, they were honest and challenging, and sometimes that's the best thing to keep all politicians, regardless of party, on their toes. And so I congratulate them, and I just want this council to pass that back to the Youth Council.
Yes, I'll definitely do that. I went to the last Youth Council meeting, and as it was saying, they've had a massive, fantastic feedback. Fantastic, really. So, yeah, I did congratulate him and said that we would, but Victor.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. If I may add to what Councillor Butler said about Youth Council, they really are very passionate about what they do, and they really want to understand the system more and to bring more younger people into Youth Council. So the present leadership of the Youth Council, I really congratulate them. They are ambitious. So I attend their meetings and I see the arguments and their debates, which is quite encouraging. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. International Affairs Subcommittee to consider recommendations from the International Affairs Subcommittee meeting on the 24th of October 2022. And to note date 1, China Sister Town. Agreed recommendations to be considered from the subcommittee to full council at its meeting on the 30th of November 2022 to dissolve Sister Town arrangements with Weinan Municipal People's Government in light of ongoing national concerns about human rights matters.
Agreed.
Agreed. You want to say something? Good.
Yeah, I do. I think it's really pertinent given the remarks from the Prime Minister earlier this week about the challenges that the UK is facing with China in a broader sense, actually, not just on human rights matters, but currently on China's role on the world stage. Without going into more detail, I think it's really significant and pertinent that we're finally sort of putting this misguided project to bed, and it's a decision that's long overdue.
Thank you. Anybody else want to say? Is it agreed?
We agree.
Thank you. Annual returns 2022 to 23 to approve and adopt 2022-23 annual returns returned to the town council by external auditors. Agreed? Outside bodies, to receive written reports from members serving the outside bodies at the time of the agenda distribution. There were none.
That's correct, Madam Mayor. There were none at that time. Subsequently, Councillor Spratt submitted a report for the Oldham Country Park group, which I believe was circulated to all members, but there are no others. What council is looking to do now is, rather than have these make the read out reports from the outside bodies, is to have a guest speaker, as we just did from Mr. Groskop from Solar. And at the next meeting, I'm happy to report that Hearts Young Homeless will be making a similar presentation. And so going forwards, hopefully this arrangement will find more interesting and a sort of more relevant item for council to consider as we break up the meeting.
Thank you very much, Hugh. Public participation. Sorry, you want to speak?
Just very, very briefly, to remind councillors and our audience that there is a meeting tomorrow, the 1st of December at Allen Hall, for people who want to find out more about the proposals for Oldham Reservoir. Nitin Goswami, one of the owners, and his agent will be there to show people what their proposals are. I know that the councillors have got an invitation to be there between 1 and 2 o'clock, I believe.
Thank you very much.
And it's from 2 o'clock to 7:30.
Yes, all day. It's all afternoon. Thank you. Public participation, question time. 15 minutes of the meeting will be given over to questions from members of the public relating to the town council business. Do I have any questions from? We need
I'll go over there.
go. Do you mind?
No. Excuse me, I'm not used to this.
I didn't recognise him. I didn't recognise him. That's all.
Right.
So we go and have the gentleman.
I'll tell you in a minute.
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. The reason I'm here,
Can we just have your name, Basil?
yes, my name is Basil Wayne. I've been a resident of Bournemouth and Mill Street for over 40 years, so it's been quite a long time. This is the first time I've ever had to do anything like this. The reason I'm here is as follows. You will be aware that Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, is proposing to extend the ULEZ zone to over the whole of London, and it's in this particular case extended to Mill Hill, North West 7, effective from August 2023. The Mayor's proposal is going to have considerable effect on senior citizens in particular. 1, how many senior citizens are going to be forced to change their cars? 2, how many can afford to change their cars? 3, how many senior citizens have family members who will be living in the enlarged zone? 4, how many senior citizens will now have difficulty travelling via non-compliant vehicles into the ULEZ zone? As matters now stand, can steps be taken to help senior citizens? Transport for London now defines that Bournemouth and Elstree Thameslink is a London station, even though it stands in a WD6 postcode. Therefore, senior citizens living in the WD6 zone, and only the WD6 zone, should now be considered for a Freedom Pass, currently only available to those who live in London postcodes. As Bournemouth and Elstree is deemed as a London location, the Bournemouth and Elstree Council should consider assisting senior citizens by offering a Freedom Pass to them. In the past, there has been resistance from the council to do this, but times have changed, and there will be many more changes in Bournemouth, I'm sure. I'm sure that when the council issued Hertfordshire bus passes, it was quite useful to many. My own Hertfordshire bus pass, unfortunately, shows me no benefit because I've had no real need to use it. Perhaps we should consider lobbying council members or representatives of all the Bournemouth wards to start the campaign with the assistance of the Bournemouth Post. I leave it to you, ladies and gentlemen, to
to decide what you would like to consider. I really do urge you to seriously consider. We do need freedom passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Basil. I didn't recognise you, I'm sorry. I just need to, Basil, I need to ask you something. Have you written to the borough? Have you written to the borough? Because
Forgive me, sorry, it's county council.
it is, yeah, but he can write to both. It's the county and, Basil's here speaking to us.
No, I think
So the more people he writes to, the better, as far as I'm concerned. Richard, I don't,
I'm happy to speak, I've already spoken about it.
You know, yeah, Basil?
No, just like 10 seconds. I'm happy to speak.
Okay.
Yeah, obviously, we've just spoken, haven't we, before this meeting, and you know my views, because I can see both sides of the argument, I've been open with that. I think you're absolutely right, I think we should be challenging all levels of councils locally. I will be asking this question at Hertfordshire County Council at the Highways panel meeting there, and actually seeing what they can do to help local residents across the south of Hertfordshire, because at the end of the day, it's not just about Elsford and Warrenwood. I sympathise with your unique case, like anyone else living in the Elsford and Warrenwood town location. But it would be interesting to see whether or not the mayor's scrappy scheme that he's rolling out actually extends anywhere over the border. I don't know if it does. To be honest, I doubt that it will. But again, I do appreciate the situation that he's in with the funds being cut from central government. So he's being pushed in the corner here, and he has to look. This is the politics of it, Simon. At the end of the day, we can go down all lines. But I will have to absolutely take the question there, and let's keep in touch.
Thank you, Richard. Basil, I think you need to go to the other two councils, which is borough and county, and do what you can do very well in the past. I know what you've done in the past, so I think you can do it. I think what Richard said about the government and this and bringing all this politics in, you need to speak to the others as well. It's been like this for now a number of years, and I think it's great if you could tackle it, and we'll see what happens.
Right, well, I'm quite prepared to do that, so I will write to the county and I will write to the borough. Right, so
Perfect.
whatever's got to be done.
And please keep us in the loop.
Okay.
Thank you. I do have a few words to say on this as chair of this council's Sustainable Transport Committee. And obviously, on one hand, the ULEZ is being expanded to deal with the increasing problem of toxic pollution and air quality. And personally, I'm supportive of the expansion of the ULEZ, as is our party and this group. But at the same time, that has to be balanced and mitigated for the reasons you've outlined, with proper investment in decent sustainable transport in and around this area, which we don't have. We're trying to address it with our Sustainable Transport Committee locally. Obviously, the first sort of big rollout has been the Beryl bikes, which I appreciate isn't necessarily going to be the first port of call for senior citizens, although there are a number who have taken it up. But we have, within the context of our action plan, agreed to look at other forms of sustainable transport, particularly improving, perhaps using demand-responsive bus services that would be available to senior citizens. Unfortunately, up until now, the county council's investment in demand-responsive buses has excluded Elstree and Bournemouth, and in fact it's excluded Hertsmere, and there may be politics behind that. It's not for me to comment. But we also need to see much more significant investment in local buses as a whole. We need to see an expansion of the Dial-a-Ride service, which is used heavily by pensioners in some parts of the county, but is currently underused and underprovided in Elstree and Boreham Wood. Obviously, at the last set of county elections, certainly Councillor Vince and Councillor Butler, together with other representatives from the Labour Party, stood on a platform of bringing the Freedom Pass to this area. And, I would say to people, you can say this isn't a political issue, but there was a clear political position taken by Labour at the last county elections that was opposed by the Conservative Party, we do still believe, both at the town, borough and county level, that it is eminently possible to introduce the Freedom Pass in this area. And we believe that funding from that is available at both borough and county level, utilising community infrastructure levy money and Section 106 paid by developers, because the introduction of a Freedom Pass, whilst it would be infrastructure in the traditional sense, would effectively provide transport infrastructure to local people. So we do feel there's a lot more that can be done, and we would be very happy to sort of sit down and have that conversation with you. But at the end of the day, political leaders need to take political decisions to provide the funding for these changes, and that's what we all need to campaign for.
Thank you, Jeremy. Michelle?
Thank you. Look, we're just coming out the back of COVID. We've got many people, many pensioners looking to give up cars. We're in a cost of living crisis where people can't afford to heat. You know, running an expensive vehicle and then purchasing an even more expensive vehicle is out of reach for many more than it's ever been before. Jeremy was spot on, absolutely spot on, where we stood on a platform.
Well, that's just been said, Michelle.
No,
We're not going over.
No, because
it's just,
because Sandra, I don't think it's totally political, and that's what I
it is
was.
totally.
No, I don't think it is.
In my opinion.
No, well, it is. The decisions were made by political people,
Jeremy's just,
right? But local,
Jeremy has just gone through it, a political platform.
right? This is, and that's not what I'm
Please,
saying.
if you could just speak to Basil,
Well,
with what your concerns
Yes.
are, and then we can,
Right.
he can go
Let's
away and meet you if you like, Jeremy, and sort something out. But
Am I
at
able
this
to
moment in
continue?
time, I'm not standing for it.
Well, you're dragging it out a long time.
I'm just not, Michelle. I'm
Right.
sorry.
Can I-
So please say.
Thank you.
Yes.
What I was going to say to you, Mr. Wayne, is for local people, this is not political. This will be supported by residents across all parties across the town. I cannot tell you this is political because it certainly isn't.
Okay, we'll be supported by all parties across the town.
Thank you. I am quite happy to help you run a campaign.
Great, that's fantastic. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you very much, Basil. Nice seeing you. Would anybody else like to say something? No, you're not, okay, all, the 15 minutes is gone, but thank you very much, Basil. Okay, exclusion, exclusions of press and public. The mayor has to move the following resolutions: that under the Public Bodies Admission to Meetings Act 1960, small s, 1, 2 in brackets, the press and public excluded from the meeting whilst matters pertaining to individual nominations of civic awards are discussed. I'm really sorry, you have to leave because this is not for the public. I'm sorry, all of you. Thank you.